In a galaxy ruled by fear, she was known as a living curse. One touch, and you died. No one ever dared face her, until now. When a fearless human steps into the heart of her world, he doesn't bring weapons, he brings truth. What happens when death meets hope? And what if the deadliest force in the universe was never meant to kill? Stay with us. This story will challenge everything you believe about power, choice, and what it truly means to be free. If you are new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's move to this wonderful story. Naren Valen stood alone at the center of a vast, silent chamber, carved from blue stone and metal that shimmered under soft white light. The ceiling stretched high above him, disappearing into shadows. Around the edges of the room, tall figures in dark robes watched him with glowing eyes. These were the Myrians, elders of a proud and secretive alien race. They were known for their wisdom, but more for their cruelty. Naren, the only human ever allowed to enter their inner circle, had been summoned here for one reason: to meet her. They called her the Silent Flame. The chamber doors opened without a sound, and she appeared. Kalyra Thorn didn't walk. She moved like smoke over ice, smooth and silent, as if the ground didn't dare resist her. Her long black robe trailed behind her, decorated with silver lines that shimmered like starlight. Her hair, white as moonlight, floated slightly in the still air. But it was her presence, not her beauty, that made the room grow colder. Every Myrian straightened. Even the most ancient among them looked away from her gaze. No one knew exactly how her power worked. They only whispered of what it did. A single touch could bring death. A breath too close could stop a heart. It wasn't poison, it wasn't magic, it was her. The Silent Flame. Living danger. Living curse. And now she was coming straight toward Naren. He didn't move, he didn't flinch. His hands stayed at his sides, his breathing calm. His eyes, pale blue and steady, watched her the way someone might look at a storm on the horizon. Not with fear, but with understanding. Somewhere in the room, a guard whispered, "He's going to die." Someone else gave a quiet, dry laugh. But no one dared speak louder. Kalyra stopped just a few steps away from Naren. She tilted her head. Her voice was soft, almost musical, but sharp like broken glass. "I warned your people not to send anyone." "I came on my own," Naren said. "You think that makes it brave? I think it makes it honest." She studied him for a long moment. Her golden eyes narrowed, searching for lies. "You know who I am?" "Yes," Naren said. "You're Kalyra Thorn, the Myrians' living weapon. The one they send when they want silence, not surrender." The room tensed. Several council members shifted in their seats, but Kalyra didn't move. "And still you stand here? I had to see you for myself." Kalyra stepped closer. Now they were only inches apart. "You're either foolish or fearless," she whispered. "Both are dangerous." "I've seen danger," Naren replied. "But you're something else." Her face changed slightly, a flicker of confusion, quickly hidden. "And what do you think I am?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached slowly into his coat and pulled out a small object, a glowing pendant the size of a pebble hanging from a silver chain. He held it in his palm. The light inside the pendant pulsed softly like a heartbeat. Kalyra's eyes narrowed. "Where did you get that?" "An abandoned Myrian site," he said. "Long ago, before your people closed the gates. You shouldn't have it." "Maybe not," he said, "but it led me here." Kalyra stared at the pendant. It pulsed faster. For a second her hand reached out, then pulled back. She looked away and her voice dropped even lower. "You're playing a game you don't understand." "Maybe," he said, "but I believe you're not the monster they say you are." She flinched. No one ever said that to her, not even once. "I've killed," she said. "I believe you. But I also believe it wasn't always your choice." Silence hung heavy between them. The council was still watching, but now even they seemed unsure. Kalira glanced at the pendant again. "Why are you really here?" she asked. "To save lives," Naren replied. "Yours included." Kalira stared at him for a long time, her face unreadable. Then she turned her back to the council and said quietly, "There's a place, a shrine, at the edge of the windless valley. It's where I gave my first death. I was barely more than a child." Naren's jaw tightened. "You were forced." "Yes," she said. "I cried for 3 days after." The pendant glowed brighter. "Meet me there," she whispered. "Midnight, if you dare." Then she stepped back, and the spell of the moment was broken. The council erupted in murmurs. One elder slammed his staff on the floor. "This human disrespects our customs," he said loudly. But Kalira raised her hand. "He has accepted the rite of passage." The room fell quiet. Naren looked around once more, then nodded. "I'll be there." He turned and walked out, as calm and steady as when he had entered, leaving behind a silence filled with questions, fear, and something else the Myrians hadn't felt in years. Hope. The wind whispered softly across the stone valley as Naren, Valen, made his way toward the ancient shrine, his footsteps echoing faintly on the pale ground. Above him, twin moons hung low in the sky, glowing like silver eyes watching from the darkness. The stars seemed quieter here, as if the sky itself was holding its breath. This was the edge of the windless valley, a place untouched by time, where the Myrians rarely walked and where legends were born and buried. Naren had no armor, no weapon, only a glowing pendant that hung from his neck, pulsing gently with warmth. He didn't know why the light grew stronger the closer he got to the shrine. He only knew it had something to do with her. The shrine appeared out of the shadows, carved from white stone and covered in faint markings. Vines crept along the edges, but the center was clear, untouched, as though something kept it sacred. Naren stepped onto the first of the worn stairs and stood silently, waiting. The cold wind picked up for a moment, then faded as quickly as it had come. A soft sound behind him made him turn. Kalira was there. She wore a long cloak that shimmered like a sky full of stars, and her hair floated gently around her shoulders. In the moonlight, she didn't look deadly. She looked lonely. Her eyes were the same glowing gold, but tonight they held something else. Not danger. Something quieter. Fear. "You came," she said, her voice almost too soft to hear. "I told you I would," Naren replied. "You still think you're immune to me?" she asked. "I don't know," he said honestly. "But I came anyway." She stepped closer, and the pendant between them glowed brighter. Kalira stared at it like it was something alive. "That light, it feels warm," she whispered. "It's not afraid of me." "Maybe it's because it remembers something," Naren said. "Something older than your curse. Something true." Kalira sat slowly on the edge of the stone platform. She looked out over the valley, then down at her hands. "This is where I gave my first death," she said. "They brought me here when I was barely old enough to understand what I was doing. There was a prisoner. He wasn't violent. He just stole food to feed his family." Naren sat beside her, careful not to touch. "They told me if I refused, they'd hurt someone I loved." She continued. "My brother. He was only 8, so I did what they asked. I touched the prisoner's cheek. He died within seconds." Her voice cracked. "I never saw my brother again." "I'm sorry," Naren said. "They told me it was an honor." She whispered. "That I had been chosen. But it didn't feel like an honor. It felt like a punishment." Naren opened his hand, showing the glowing pendant again. "When I found this on an abandoned Myrian ship, my scanner picked up something strange. It called it a living memory. I think it's connected to your people's past before the council twisted it." Kalira reached for the pendant slowly, her fingers shaking. As soon as she touched it, the light grew warmer, brighter. She gasped, not in pain, but in surprise. It's alive, she said. It feels like me. Naren watched her carefully. Maybe your power was never meant to kill. Maybe it was meant for something else. Maybe the council changed it, used fear to control you. Kalira looked down at her hands. I've believed for so long that I was poison, that everything I touched would die. You're not poison, Naren said softly. You're a person who was never given a choice. She looked at him, and for the first time the sharpness in her gaze softened. Why do you care so much? Because I've seen what happens when people are forced into roles they never chose, he said, and because I believe people can change if they're given the truth. Kalira turned the pendant over in her palm. The light now pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. You're strange, she said. Humans are afraid of what they don't understand. But you came here, knowing I might kill you. Naren smiled slightly. I didn't come to survive you. I came to understand you. A quiet moment passed. The night was still and the moons cast long shadows over the valley. Kalira stood slowly, pulling her cloak tighter. They won't like this, she said. The council, they'll see you as a threat now. They'll come for you. I know, Naren said, standing beside her. But I think it's worth it. Kalira looked at him, her expression unreadable. If you're wrong, you'll die. Then I'll die knowing I tried to change something. For the first time in years, Kalira felt something unfamiliar stir in her chest. Not fear, not anger. Something soft. Something dangerous in a different way. Hope. She looked up at the moons. Let's see where this goes, she said. And beside her, Naren nodded. Let's. The night air shifted suddenly, bringing with it a weight Naren Valen could feel in his bones. He and Kalira stood near the edge of the ancient shrine, where silence had once been a comfort. Now it felt sharp, like the moment before a storm. The pendant in Kalira's hand dimmed slightly, reacting to something unseen. Her golden eyes scanned the horizon, and a small frown crossed her face. They're coming, she said softly. Naren didn't ask who. He already knew. The council wouldn't allow what happened between them to continue. It had been clear from the way they watched him, from the way they stayed silent while Kalira offered him a meeting. They had hoped he would die at her touch. When that failed, they would try something less ceremonial, something final. A sound cracked through the valley, sharp and distant like a branch snapping under pressure. Then another, closer. Red lights blinked from the mountain ridge above them. Kalira stepped back, her cloak swirling as she moved. They've sent the veiled marks, she said. Silent assassins. No emotion. No mercy. Naren's jaw tightened. Then we run. They're already in position, Kalira replied, scanning the cliffs. This was planned. The air filled with a faint humming noise. Tiny red beams flickered through the darkness, lighting up patches of rock and earth as they passed. One beam shot close to Naren's shoulder, cutting into a tree behind him. He grabbed Kalira's arm. We still have to move. Staying here is death. Without another word, they ran. They darted down the winding path that led from the shrine, feet kicking up dust and small stones. Trees loomed around them like silent guards, their branches swaying as the wind picked up. Another beam sliced past, lighting up Kalira's cloak. She twisted away just in time, her breath catching. She wasn't used to running. She had always been the storm others fled from, not the one who fled. But this was different. For the first time, someone had treated her like more than a weapon. And now, for the first time, she wanted to live. They reached a steep drop where the path ended, cliffs falling into dark forest below. Naren looked around quickly and pointed to a narrow trail hidden by large rocks. This way. As they scrambled down the rocks, Kalira spoke through shallow breaths. Why would they send so many? You're just one human. I'm not the danger, he said. What I represent is. She didn't understand at first, but then she did. The pendant. The change. The idea that her curse could be broken. that she wasn't what the council claimed she was. If others knew, if her people believed it, it would break the council's control. "They want to erase the story," Kalira whispered. "They want me back in the dark." Another beam burst behind them, striking a tree and setting it ablaze. Flames rose quickly, painting the trees in orange and red. Naren and Kalira threw themselves behind a large boulder, breathing hard, the glow of the fire reflecting in their eyes. Kalira's hands were shaking, but not from fear. It was something deeper, something rising inside her. "I haven't felt this alive in years," she said quietly. Naren looked at her. Her face, lit by firelight, was no longer calm and cold. It was real. Open. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the pendant again. It was glowing steadily now, the light warm and strong between them. "I think it's responding to you," he said. "Not to your power, to your truth." She held it in her hand again. The pulse of the light matched her heartbeat. "It doesn't burn," she said. "It calms me." A sudden voice came from above. "Enough hiding." Both looked up to see 3 dark figures descending from the cliffs, weapons drawn and eyes empty. The veiled marks moved without sound, their movements smooth and precise. Kalira stood and faced them. "I can stop them," she said, "but I'll have to touch them." "You don't have to," Naren said. "You already made a choice. That's stronger than any attack." Kalira's breath slowed. She looked at the assassins, then back at Naren. "If I run, they'll chase." "Then we don't run," he said. "We lead." She blinked. "Lead where?" "To the truth," he said simply. Before the veiled marks could reach them, Kalira turned and took Naren's hand. It was the first time she had willingly touched someone without fear. The pendant between them shone so bright it forced the assassins to shield their eyes. For a moment the whole forest lit up. The marks paused, unsure. Kalira stared at Naren, heart pounding. "Something's happening to me," she said. He met her gaze calmly. "Then let it happen." They turned and ran again, not just running from something, but toward something new. Behind them the forest burned and the shadows hesitated. In the distance, the old council would soon learn a truth far more dangerous than death. Kalira Thorne was no longer afraid of herself. And for the first time, the light hunted back. The sun had not yet risen, but the horizon glowed with the first hint of morning. Faint light touched the tops of the distant peaks, casting long shadows across the ground where Kalira and Naren now stood. They had escaped the forest after a long night of running and hiding, the echoes of fire and red beams still fresh in their minds. They reached the ruins of a forgotten Mirian sanctuary, hidden deep in the mountains and swallowed by time. It was quiet here, the kind of silence that made everything feel still, like even the world itself was watching. Kalira stepped forward, her boots pressing into the soft earth. Vines clung to crumbling stone walls, and ancient symbols covered every surface. She didn't recognize them all, but she felt them as if they were part of her memory. Naren followed behind her, carrying the pendant that had guided them this far. Its glow had dimmed slightly, but the warmth remained. He placed it on a stone altar at the center of the sanctuary, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, the stone lit up with soft golden lines forming patterns that moved and pulsed like living veins. Kalira stared at the light, her breath caught in her chest. She walked closer, her eyes wide. The patterns formed images, flickers of faces, hands reaching, a young girl crying. A voice echoed faintly, not from outside, but from within her. "You were never meant to destroy," it said. "You were born to guide." Her hands trembled. She placed her palms on the altar and the pendant pulsed under her fingers. The warmth spread up her arms, into her chest. The feeling was strange, not painful, but full, like something was awakening inside, her that had been buried long ago. She could see now, memories that were not just hers but from the ancestors who came before. They had carried light, not death. Their touch had healed wounds, calmed storms, brought life to barren places. Tears slipped down her face. The truth had been hidden from her for so long, twisted into fear, buried under lies. The council had taken her gift and turned it into a weapon, because fear was easier to control than power born from love. She stepped back and looked at Naren. He stood silently, waiting, not pushing her, not telling her what to do. Just trusting Kylira. Turned toward the sky. Above them, the twin moons were fading, and the first rays of sunlight touched the edges of the stone. Then she heard it. The sound of footsteps. Many of them. She and Naren looked toward the sanctuary entrance as figures in dark robes approached. The council had come. High Chancellor Drain stood at the front, tall and still, his silver robes rippling in the morning wind. His golden eyes fixed on Kylira, cold and full of control. "You went too far," he said. "You've broken ancient law." Kylira didn't look away. "No," she said. "I've remembered who I really am." "You are a danger," Drain replied. "We created you for a purpose." "You didn't create me," Kylira said, her voice rising. "You used me. You lied to me. You made me think I was a curse when I was a gift." The council stirred behind him. Some looked unsure, others angry, but none moved. Drain stepped forward. "Come with us now, or face the full force of judgment." Kylira looked down at the pendant on the altar. It glowed brighter than before. She could still feel its warmth in her chest. Then she looked back at Naren. He gave a small nod. The choice was hers. And she already knew what to do. She walked slowly to the center of the sanctuary, placing herself between Naren and the council. Her hands rose not in defense but in peace. "I will not fight you," she said, "but I will not follow you either." The wind picked up. Light from the altar swirled around her like threads of gold. Her cloak lifted, glowing softly as the power inside her took shape. The Myrians watched in stunned silence. No one moved. "This ends now," Kylira said. "I am no one's weapon." Drain opened his mouth to speak, but a wave of light burst from the altar, rushing past Kylira and toward the council. It didn't harm them. It passed through them like a memory, leaving behind only silence. Drain stepped back, his face pale. "You've awakened something," he said quietly. "Something old." Kylira nodded. "Truth." She turned and walked toward Naren. He took her hand without fear. For the first time, she felt her skin against another's and knew she would not bring death. She would bring something else. Change. Together, they left the sanctuary as the sun rose fully over the mountains. The sky turned gold and the light followed them. Kylira no longer feared who she was. She had made her choice. She chose to live. She chose to be free.